The war room of the Zalari flagship hummed with quiet energy. Holographic displays floated in the dim purple light, showing a small blue planet rotating slowly in the center. Commander Thralic stood before the image, his tall frame casting long shadows across the metal floor. His crystalline bones caught the light, making his skeleton visible through his pale, translucent skin. "This is Earth," he announced to the assembled officers. "Our 48th conquest." The other Zalari in the room straightened with pride. 47 star systems had fallen before their empire over 800 years. Each victory had been swift and absolute. The Zalari had superior technology, faster ships, and weapons that could tear through planetary defenses like paper. Chief Engineer Velamora stepped forward, her movements graceful in the low gravity of the ship. All Zalari moved like dancers, their bodies adapted to the weak pull of their homeworld. Zealer Prime orbited a dying red dwarf star, and its gravity was less than half of what the sensors showed for Earth. "Commander," Velamora said carefully, "I must raise a concern about the gravity differential." Thralix waved a long-fingered hand dismissively. "We have reviewed your reports, Engineer. The new gravity suits will compensate." Velmora's concern deepened, but she knew better than to argue with Thralix in front of the other officers. The commander had led 12 successful invasions. He had personally accepted the surrender of 6 planetary governments. His confidence was legendary throughout the fleet, and that confidence had never failed him before. "The suits have been tested," Thralix continued, turning back to the hologram. "Our engineers have spent 6 months developing the graviton compression technology. 50,000 of our finest warriors are equipped and ready." War scholar Crintal, an older Zalari with darker skin and eyes that had seen many campaigns, spoke from the back of the room. "Commander, I have studied the humans extensively. Their history shows a pattern of fierce resistance to invasion. Combined with their high-gravity physiology, they may prove more challenging than previous species." "Challenging?" Thralix laughed, a sound like wind chimes. "Scholar, these primitives still use chemical rockets. They have barely touched their own moon. They fight among themselves constantly. They are divided into hundreds of tribal nations. They will collapse within days of our arrival." The hologram shifted, showing footage captured by the advanced probes. Humans walked heavily across their world, their bodies thick and compact compared to the elegant Zalari form. They built structures low and wide, crushing everything with their excessive mass. Even their children seemed dense and solid, running and jumping without the grace that Zalari possessed. "Look at them," Thralix said with contempt. "They are bound to their planet like insects to a stone. Their own gravity is their prison. We soar above such limitations." Velamora pulled up her technical schematics. The gravity suits appeared on a secondary display, sleek armor that would encase each warrior. "The suits create a localized gravitational field," she explained, though everyone in the room had heard the briefing before. "They reduce the effective gravity experienced by the wearer from 1 Earth standard to 0.4 Zalari standard. In testing aboard the orbital platforms, they have performed at 94% efficiency. You see?" Thralix said, "We have technology. That is what separates us from these ground-bound creatures." But Velamora was not finished. "Commander, the testing was conducted in controlled environments. The subjects were walking, standing, and performing basic movements. We have not tested the suits under combat conditions. We have not tested rapid acceleration, sudden impacts, or sustained high-stress activities." The room fell quiet. Several officers shifted uncomfortably. They had all read the same reports. Earth's gravity was not just higher than Zealar Prime. It was higher than any world the Zalari had ever set foot on. Every previous conquest had been of species from low-gravity environments, worlds orbiting dim stars or large moons with weak pulls. Thralix's expression hardened. "Engineer Velamora, are you suggesting that the Zalari Empire, conqueror of 47 systems, cannot overcome a simple matter of gravity?" "I am suggesting caution, Commander." "Your caution is noted and dismissed." Thralix turned to address the full assembly. "We launch in 3 planetary rotations. All troops will board their assigned drop ships. We will demonstrate to these humans what it means to face the Zalari Empire." The officers saluted and began to file out. Crintal approached Velamora as they walked through the corridor outside the war room. The scholar moved with the careful steps of someone who had lived long enough to witness many mistakes. "You tried," Crintal said quietly. "That is all we can do." "It is not enough," Velamora replied. I have run the calculations 1,000 times. The suits work for static conditions, but combat is dynamic. Every jump, every fall, every sudden movement will create stress points. The power requirements will spike. And if the suit fails even for a fraction of a second, our bones will remember what it means to face true gravity. Crintal finished. They walked in silence to the observation deck. Through the transparent metal, Earth hung like a jewel against the black, beautiful and deadly. Vellamora had never feared a planet before, but she feared this one. 3 days later, the troop bay of the flagship buzzed with activity. 50,000 Zalari warriors donned their gravity suits for the first time in preparation for real deployment. The suits were sleek and black, covered with graviton emitters that glowed a soft blue. Each warrior looked powerful and deadly, their weapons integrated into the armor systems. Thralix walked among them, his own command suit gleaming with gold accents. "Warriors of Zelar," he called out, his voice amplified through the bay. "Today we add another world to our empire. The humans do not know it yet, but their freedom ends today. We are stronger, faster, and superior in every way. Their heavy gravity cannot hold us down. Their primitive weapons cannot harm us. We are Zalari and we are unstoppable." The warriors roared their approval, the sound echoing off the metal walls. They had trained for this. They had prepared. They were ready. In the engineering section, Vellamora watched her monitoring screens. Every gravity suit transmitted its status in real time. Green lights across the board. 94% efficiency. All systems nominal. She should have felt relieved, but her unease only grew. She ran one final diagnostic, checking the power consumption rates during movement. The numbers made her pause. During a simple walk cycle, the suits used 12% of their maximum power capacity. During a running simulation, that jumped to 38%. The calculations for jumping or landing from height showed power spikes that reached 85%. Vellamora pulled up the combat doctrine files. Zalari warriors were trained to use their natural agility in battle. They leaped and struck from above. They moved in 3 dimensions using low gravity to their advantage. Every fighting technique in their arsenal required rapid movement and sudden direction changes. She opened a communication channel to the war room. "Commander, I need to speak with you urgently." "Not now, engineer," came the reply. "We are 30 minutes from launch." "Commander, the suits cannot handle combat maneuvers. The power requirements are too high. If the warriors fight the way they are trained, the suits will fail." There was a long pause. Then Thralix responded, his voice cold. "Your concerns are noted. We proceed as planned." The channel closed. Vellamora stared at her screens, at all those green lights that represented warriors who had no idea what awaited them below. Crintal appeared beside her, having heard the exchange. "Perhaps we are wrong," the scholar said without conviction. "Perhaps the suits will hold." "Perhaps," Vellamora whispered. But she did not believe it. The dropships launched on schedule. 23 vessels carrying the pride of the Zalari military toward the surface of Earth. Inside each ship, warriors stood ready, their suits humming with power, their weapons charged, their confidence absolute. None of them knew that they were about to learn a lesson that no amount of technology could overcome. Physics did not care about superiority. Gravity did not recognize conquest. And Earth was about to teach them both those truths in the most brutal way possible. The invasion fleet appeared in Earth's orbit like dark stars blotting out the sun. 23 warships, each the size of a small city, hung in formation above the planet. On the surface below, every radar system, every telescope, and every sensor array suddenly screamed warnings into command centers across the globe. In Colorado, deep inside Cheyenne Mountain, American military officers stared at their screens in disbelief. In Moscow, generals scrambled to contact their counterparts. In Beijing, emergency protocols activated. The United Nations held an emergency session that lasted 17 minutes before everyone realized that talking would not help. Humanity had finally encountered alien life, and those aliens had come with warships. The Zalari broadcast began at noon, Greenwich Mean Time. Every television, every radio, every communication device on Earth suddenly carried the same message. Commander Thralix appeared on billions of screens, his tall frame and translucent skin making him look like a ghost made real. "Humans of Earth," he said in perfect English, the translator software making his voice smooth and cold. "Your planet has been selected for incorporation into the Zalari Empire. You will surrender all governmental authority immediately. Resistance will be met with overwhelming force. You have one planetary rotation to comply. The broadcast ended. The world erupted into chaos. But humanity did not have a single voice to answer with. The United Nations tried to coordinate a response, but every nation had its own ideas. Some wanted to surrender immediately. Others prepared for war. Most simply panicked. Cities emptied as people fled to anywhere that seemed safer. Stock markets crashed. Communication networks overloaded. Thralix watched from his command deck satisfied. This was how it always went. Fear first, then surrender. The humans would fall in line like all the others. Target selected, announced his tactical officer. New York City, North American continent. Population density high. Symbolic value significant. Recommending Central Park as landing zone for maximum visibility. Approved, Thralix said. Launch first wave. 500 warriors. We will break them before the day ends. In the troop bay, the first wave of warriors boarded their dropships. These were the elite, the veterans of previous campaigns, the pride of Zalari military training. Their gravity suit showed green across every status indicator. Each warrior carried weapons that could level buildings. Their armor could withstand small arms fire. They had training, technology, and the confidence of an empire that had never lost. Squad leader Jexrin checked her weapon one final time. She had fought on 6 worlds before this one. She had seen enemies surrender at the mere sight of Zalari forces. This would be no different. The suits felt good. The gravity compensation working perfectly even here in the low gravity of the ship. All warriors, prepare for launch, came the command. The dropships detached from the flagship with barely a vibration. 5 sleek vessels angled toward Earth, their shields beginning to glow as they hit the first whispers of atmosphere. Inside, the warriors stood in formation, magnetic locks holding them to the floor, weapons ready. Jexrin felt the gravity increase as they descended. The suit compensated automatically, and she felt only the familiar pull of home. The technology was working exactly as promised. She allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. Engineer Velamora had worried for nothing. On Earth, military forces scrambled jets from every available base. F-22s, Eurofighters, and Sukhois screamed into the sky, missiles armed, pilots knowing they were probably flying to their deaths but going anyway. The first wave reached the Zalari dropships over the Atlantic. The missiles never had a chance. Point defense systems on the dropships tracked and destroyed every projectile before it came within a kilometer. Laser fire reached out and touched 3 jets, which simply disintegrated. The remaining aircraft broke off, their pilots reporting that conventional weapons were useless. The dropships continued their descent, untouched and unstoppable. In Central Park, confused and terrified people looked up at the sky. Some ran. Others stood frozen, unable to process what they were seeing. 5 dark shapes grew larger, slowing as they approached, shields glowing bright enough to hurt the eyes. Trees bent in the wash of the landing thrusters. The ground itself seemed to tremble. The ships touched down with surprising gentleness, their landing struts settling into the grass and dirt. For a moment, nothing happened. The world seemed to hold its breath. Then the landing ramps began to lower. Threlix watched through the helmet camera feeds. All units advance. Show them what the Zalari Empire represents. The ramps touched ground. The first warriors stepped out into Earth sunlight for the first time. The gravity hit them like a wave, but the suits held. Indicators showed 89% efficiency, well within acceptable parameters. The warriors felt heavy but mobile. Their training had prepared them for this. Jexrin led her squad down the ramp, her boots crunching on alien grass. The air smelled strange, full of scents she had no words for. The sky was too blue, the sun too bright and yellow. But these were just details. The mission was what mattered. Around the perimeter of the park, human soldiers had established positions. Rifles pointed at the aliens, but no one had given the order to fire. Tanks rolled into position on the streets. Helicopters circled overhead. Everyone waited to see what would happen. The Zalari warriors formed up in standard combat formation, 500 strong, weapons ready. They looked unstoppable in their black armor, moving with purpose and precision. The humans watching felt their hope dying. How could they fight something that had crossed the stars? Thralix gave the order. Advance and secure the area. Engage any resistance with appropriate force. The warriors began to move forward. This was the moment they had trained for. The Zilari combat doctrine was based on speed and aggression. Warriors were taught to close distance rapidly, to strike from unexpected angles, to use their natural agility to overwhelm slower opponents. The first warrior executed a standard combat leap, pushing off with both legs to cover 5 meters in a single bound. It was a basic maneuver, taught to every Zilari soldier from their first day of training. In Zilari gravity, such a leap would carry a warrior 10 meters and land soft as a feather. In Earth gravity, everything was different. The warrior rose into the air, the suit compensating for the increased pull. For a moment, everything seemed fine. The arc was shorter than it should be, but the warrior adjusted. The apex passed. The descent began, and the gravity suit encountered a problem it had never been tested. For the power requirements for catching a falling body in one full Earth, gravity were not the same as maintaining compensation for standing. As the warrior fell, accelerating at 9.8 meters per second squared, the suit's graviton emitters tried to compensate. Power consumption spiked to 72%, then 85%, then 98%. For 0.3 seconds, the suit could not maintain full compensation. For 0.3 seconds, the warrior experienced the full weight of Earth gravity on a skeletal structure, built for less than half that force. The warrior hit the ground. The sound was like glass breaking, but worse, sharper, more final. The crystalline bone structure of the Zilari femurs, beautiful and efficient in low gravity, shattered under the impact. Both legs broke in multiple places. The warrior screamed, a high-pitched sound that carried across the park. Jexrin froze, not understanding what she had just witnessed. Around her, 200 other warriors had initiated the same combat leap at the same moment. Following standard doctrine, they all came down together. The sound of breaking bones filled Central Park like a symphony of destruction. Warriors collapsed mid-stride, their legs unable to support them as fractures raced through crystalline calcium structures never meant to endure such force. Some tried to catch themselves and felt their arm bones snap. Others landed on their backs and experienced spinal compression fractures that left them paralyzed. The screaming began in earnest then, hundreds of voices crying out in pain and confusion. Warriors who had not yet leaped stopped in horror, watching their comrades writhe on the ground. The human soldiers stared in shock, fingers frozen on triggers, unable to comprehend what they were witnessing. On the flagship, Thralix watched the camera feeds turn into chaos. "What is happening? Report!" Medical emergencies across all squads, came the panicked response. Massive casualties. Bone fractures. They are breaking, Commander. They are just breaking. Velamora was already running toward the command deck, her worst fears realized. She burst into the room without permission. "Abort the landing. Recall all forces immediately. Explain this," Thralix demanded. "The suits cannot handle combat dynamics," Velamora said, her voice shaking with urgency. "The power requirements for catching rapid acceleration changes are too high. Every time they move quickly, every time they jump or fall, there is a lag in compensation. Just a fraction of a second, but enough. Enough for Earth gravity to break them." On the ground, the warriors who had not attempted aggressive maneuvers stood perfectly still, afraid to move. Those who tried to help their fallen comrades found that bending or moving too quickly brought their own suits to the edge of failure. Some fell simply from shifting their weight wrong. The emergency room at Mount Sinai Hospital had never seen anything like this. Neither had any hospital on Earth. 37 Zilari warriors had been transported there in the first hour, carefully loaded onto specially designed gurneys by confused and terrified human medics. The aliens weighed almost nothing despite their height, their crystalline bones visible through translucent skin that seemed too delicate to be real. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the trauma bay, staring at an X-ray that made no sense according to human anatomy, but was horrifyingly clear in what it showed. The Zilari femur on her screen had shattered into 17 distinct pieces. The bone structure looked more like calcified coral than anything she had seen in medical school. "How do we even begin to treat this?" asked Dr. Marcus Webb, standing beside her. "We don't," Sarah replied. "Not without their medical data. Their physiology is completely different from ours. We could kill them trying to help." Outside the hospital, the world was trying to process what had happened. The invasion that should have ended human civilization had instead ended with hundreds of aliens broken on the grass of Central Park. Video footage played on every screen, showing tall figures in black armor collapsing mid-leap. their bones shattering audibly enough that the microphones picked it up. Humanity had won its first encounter with an alien civilization without firing a shot, but the victory felt strange and hollow. There was no glory in watching intelligent beings destroy themselves. In the White House Situation Room, President Morrison sat with her national security team, trying to decide what to do next. The Zalari fleet still hung in orbit, 23 warships with enough firepower to level cities. But they had not attacked after the failed landing. They had simply stopped, holding position like they were waiting for something. "What's the status of our orbital capabilities?" Morrison asked. General Patterson pulled up a tactical display. "We can have 6 ICBMs retargeted for orbital strikes within 4 hours. The nuclear option is available if needed. But, Madam President, if we attack, they will retaliate. Those ships can bombard us from orbit. We would be trading city for city." "Mutually assured destruction," Morrison said quietly. "Just like the Cold War, except with aliens." "The Zalari have opened a communication channel," announced the communications director. "They are requesting negotiations." Morrison straightened. "Put them through." The main screen flickered to life, showing not Commander Thralix, but a different Zalari. This one was older, with darker skin and eyes that held a deep sadness. "I am Fleet Admiral Jexrin," the alien said. "I have assumed command of the Zalari forces. Commander Thralix has been relieved of duty. This is President Morrison of the United States of America. I speak for Earth in this matter." "President Morrison," Jexrin said, "I wish to discuss terms of withdrawal." In the command deck of the flagship, the atmosphere was tense. Thralix had been confined to quarters after a confrontation with his senior officers. Velamora had presented her findings to the entire command staff, showing exactly how and why the invasion had failed. The evidence was undeniable. The gravity suits had worked within their design parameters. The problem was that those parameters were insufficient for combat. Every sudden movement, every rapid acceleration required massive power spikes to maintain gravitational compensation. And in those brief moments when power could not keep up, Earth's gravity reminded the Zalari of a fundamental truth. Physics did not care about technology or superiority. We evolved in caves on a moon with 0.4 standard gravity, Velamora explained to the assembled officers. "Our bones are crystalline calcium carbonate, designed for minimal weight and maximum flexibility in low gravity. They are beautiful and efficient in the environment we came from. On Earth, they are catastrophically inadequate." War scholar Krintal added his own analysis. "I have reviewed our conquest history. All 47 species we have subjugated came from low-gravity worlds. The highest was 0.6 standard. We have built an empire by conquering only those weaker than ourselves and called it strength." The silence that followed was damning. On Earth, human scientists were working frantically with the limited Zalari medical data they had received. The aliens had transmitted basic physiological information in exchange for human doctors treating their wounded. It was a gesture of desperation and perhaps the beginning of trust. Dr. Chen studied the data with growing fascination and horror. The Zalari skeleton was a masterpiece of low-gravity evolution. Light, flexible, and incredibly efficient for moving in 0.4 gravity. But under Earth's pull, those same advantages became fatal weaknesses. "Their bone density is 1/5 of human bone density," she explained to her team. "They literally cannot support their own weight under sustained Earth gravity." The suits were compensating, but the moment they made any sudden movement, there was a lag. "Just 0.3 seconds, but that was enough. Can we help them?" asked a young resident. "We can stabilize them, keep them alive. But actual healing, that will require Zalari medical technology, and we would need to keep them in a low-gravity environment. Earth itself is hostile to their physiology." The United Nations called an emergency session. Every nation sent representatives. For the first time in human history, humanity spoke with one voice because it had to. The threat from above had united them in a way that decades of diplomacy never could. But now the question was different. The Zalari were not the unstoppable conquerors they had appeared to be. They were fragile beings in sophisticated armor, broken by their own arrogance and a fundamental misunderstanding of natural forces. "What do we do?" asked the Chinese ambassador. "Do we press our advantage? Destroy them while they are weak." "And become the aggressors?" countered the Brazilian representative. "They came to conquer us, yes, but they failed. Do we need to become executioners?" The debate raged for hours. Some wanted revenge. Others wanted knowledge, the technology that had brought the Zilari across the stars. Still others simply wanted them gone, away from Earth before they decided to bombard the planet from orbit. President Morrison, speaking for the Security Council, made the decision. We negotiate. We show them that humanity can be merciful even to those who came to harm us. But we also make it clear that we can defend ourselves. Balance, ladies and gentlemen. Balance between strength and mercy. The negotiation took place via secure holographic link. Admiral Jexrin represented the Zilari. President Morrison and Secretary General Okonkwo represented Earth. They met in a virtual space, their images projected across the vast distance between ground and orbit. Your people are injured, Morrison began. We are treating them to the best of our ability. But they need medical care beyond what we can provide. We are grateful for your mercy, Jexrin said. I will be honest with you. Our medical ships can reach Earth orbit in 6 days. Until then, our wounded are in your hands. We will care for them, Okonkwo assured. But we need to discuss the larger situation. Your fleet remains in orbit. Your intent to conquer Earth has not been formally withdrawn. Jexrin was quiet for a moment. President Morrison, Secretary General Okonkwo, I wish to be direct. We came to your world believing we were superior. We believed that technology could overcome any obstacle. We were wrong. Catastrophically, fatally wrong. Your gravity suits failed, Morrison said. No, Velmora interrupted, appearing beside Jexrin. Our understanding failed. The suits performed within their specifications. Those specifications were simply insufficient. We tested them in controlled environments. We never considered the chaos of actual combat. We assumed that because we could stand on your world, we could fight on it. That assumption has cost us nearly 3,000 casualties. Morrison leaned forward. 3,000? We counted less than 400 in Central Park. The second and third waves launched before we could stop them, Jexrin explained. Different locations, all with the same result. Mexico City, Shanghai, Sydney. Everywhere we tried to land, our warriors broke themselves. The pattern was identical. The humans absorbed this information in silence. The scale of the disaster was larger than they had known. What do you want from us? Morrison asked finally. Safe passage to evacuate our wounded, Jexrin said. A non-aggression pact. And if you are willing, a technology exchange. Your materials science, your understanding of high-gravity engineering, our faster-than-light drives, our gravitational manipulation technology. You want us to teach you how to invade us more effectively? Okonkwo asked incredulously. No, Krintal said, speaking for the first time. We want you to teach us humility. We want to learn from beings who evolved under conditions we cannot survive in without artificial support. We want to understand what we have been too arrogant to see. That we are not superior. We are simply different. Morrison exchanged glances with Okonkwo. This was not how they had expected the negotiation to go. There is something else, Velmora added. Our research suggests that Earth's gravity, one standard, is above the galactic average. Most spacefaring species come from worlds between 0.5 and 0.8 standard gravity. You are, by galactic standards, a high-gravity species. What does that mean? Morrison asked. It means, Krintal said quietly, that you are physically more robust than most of the galaxy. Your bones are denser. 3 months after the failed invasion, the Zilari Empire was in turmoil. The High Command had dissolved in a series of dramatic resignations and forced retirements. The council that had ruled the empire for 3 centuries was gone, replaced by a temporary emergency government that nobody quite trusted yet. In the Grand Assembly Hall on Zilar Prime, Velmora stood before what remained of the imperial leadership. She had been summoned to present her findings, not just about the Earth invasion, but about the entire foundation of Zilari expansion. We have been operating under a fundamental delusion, she began, her voice echoing in the crystalline chamber. For 800 years we have conquered worlds and called it strength. But we never conquered strength. We only conquered weakness. She activated the holographic display showing a star map of Zilari space. 47 conquered systems glowed in blue. Every single species we subjugated came from low-gravity environments. The highest was 0.6 standard gravity. The average was 0.4, the same as our homeworld. Another Zilari, an elderly diplomat named Thexiral, spoke up. Are you suggesting our military victories were false? I am suggesting they were incomplete, Velmora replied. We won because we had better technology than species at similar developmental stages on similar worlds. We never encountered anyone significantly different from us. Earth was the first high-gravity species we attempted to invade. Krintal stepped forward to join her. The war scholar had been preparing his own research, and it painted an even more disturbing picture. I have analyzed our exploration patterns over the past 8 centuries. We systematically avoided high-gravity worlds. Not consciously, perhaps, but the bias was there. Worlds above 0.7 gravity were marked as unsuitable for colonization and passed over. We told ourselves it was because the energy cost was too high. But the truth is simpler. We were afraid. Afraid? Thexerl scoffed. The Zalari Empire fears nothing. The Zalari Empire fears everything, Krintal said quietly. We fear what we cannot control. We fear environments that challenge our physiology. We fear species that are fundamentally different from us. So we conquered only those who were like us, who shared our weaknesses, who could not expose our limitations. The assembly fell into uncomfortable silence. These truths were hard to hear, but the failure at Earth made them impossible to deny. Vellamora continued. I have compiled data from the galactic database the humans shared with us. There are an estimated 23,000 spacefaring civilizations in the galaxy. Of those, approximately 60% come from worlds between 0.5 and 0.8 standard gravity. 20% come from worlds below 0.5, and 20% come from worlds above 0.8. She let that sink in. We belong to the bottom 20%, the weakest physically of all spacefaring species. And we built an empire by only confronting those as weak or weaker than ourselves. On Earth, the transformation was equally dramatic, but moved in the opposite direction. Humanity had discovered it was strong, and that knowledge changed everything. The captured Zalari gravity suits were being reverse-engineered in laboratories around the world. Human scientists had figured out the basic principles of gravitational manipulation within 6 weeks. Within 3 months, they had built their own prototype. Dr. James Foster stood in the testing chamber at MIT, wearing humanity's first gravity manipulation suit. It was bulkier than the Zalari version, less elegant, but it worked. He adjusted the settings and felt his weight decrease. The sensation was strange, like floating without leaving the ground. How does it feel? Asked his colleague, Dr. Yuki Tanaka. Weird, James said, but functional. I can walk normally at 0.4 gravity. The suit is stable. Try a jump, Yuki suggested. James bent his knees and jumped. He soared 3 meters into the air, the suit compensating perfectly for Earth's gravity. He landed smoothly, the suit absorbing the impact without any power fluctuation. It works, he said, grinning. It actually works. Of course it works, Yuki said. We built it to handle Earth gravity. The Zalari built theirs to simulate Zalari gravity. They engineered for their comfort. We engineered for our reality. That difference in approach would define the next phase of human development. Humanity did not try to escape Earth's gravity. They embraced it. They built technology that worked within it, that used it, that turned it from an obstacle into an advantage. The space programs of every major nation accelerated dramatically. The technology sharing agreement with the Zalari had given humanity faster-than-light drive principles. Human engineers were adapting them, rebuilding them to handle the stresses that high-gravity species would require. The Zalari ships are designed for comfort, explained Dr. Chen during a press conference. They minimize acceleration, avoid sudden maneuvers, keep everything smooth and gentle. Human ships won't have that luxury because we don't need it. We can handle higher G-forces. Our bodies can endure greater stress. Our ships can push harder, turn faster, accelerate more aggressively. A reporter asked the obvious question, does that mean we would be superior in combat? Dr. Chen hesitated. It means we would be different. The Zalari taught us the danger of assuming superiority. Let's not make their mistake. But the military implications were clear to everyone. Humanity's high-gravity evolution had made them physically more robust than most of the galaxy. That was simply a fact. What they did with that fact would determine their future. In the Zalari Empire, former Commander Thralix faced his court-martial. The tribunal consisted of 5 senior officials, none of whom looked at him with anything but disappointment. You led 50,000 warriors into a situation you were warned about, said the chief magistrate. You ignored expert advice. You proceeded despite clear concerns about the gravity suits. How do you plead? Guilty, Threlix said simply. I was arrogant. I believed our technology made us invincible. I was wrong, and my warriors paid the price for my mistake. The tribunal deliberated for less than an hour. The sentence was unusual. Thralix would spend 1 year on a world with 0.8 standard gravity, wearing no assistance technology. He would experience firsthand what it meant to be truly challenged by a planet's natural forces. You will learn humility, the magistrate said, or you will break. Either way, you will understand what you put your warriors through. Velamora visited him before his departure to the high-gravity world. She found him packing his few allowed belongings, moving slowly, already dreading what awaited him. "I designed the suits that failed," she said. "Why am I not standing trial beside you?" "Because you tried to warn us," Thralix replied. "You did your job. I did not do mine. Command means responsibility. I accept that." "Still," Velamora said, "I carry the guilt. 3,000 casualties. 3,000 warriors broken because my designs were insufficient." "Your designs were fine for what they were tested for," Thralix said. "The failure was in the testing, in the assumptions, in the arrogance of command. Learn from this, engineer. When you design the next generation of suits, remember Earth. Remember what happens when theory meets reality." Velamora nodded. She had already begun working on new designs, but with a completely different philosophy. The new suits would not try to simulate Zalari gravity on high-gravity worlds. They would instead gradually acclimate the wearer to higher gravity, strengthening their skeleton and musculature over time. It would take months instead of days, but it would be real adaptation instead of artificial compensation. Crintal was appointed as the Zalari Empire's first ambassador to Earth. He arrived in New York 3 months after the invasion, this time peacefully, wearing a medical-grade gravity suit that kept him safe but did not pretend he could function like the natives. President Morrison met him at the United Nations building. They shook hands carefully, aware that they represented two very different visions of the future. "Welcome to Earth, Ambassador," Morrison said. "Thank you, President Morrison. I hope to serve as a bridge between our peoples." "We have much to discuss," Morrison said. "Your people shared their database with us. We know about the other species you conquered. Some of them are asking Earth for help." Crintal had known this was coming. "Yes, word of our defeat has spread. 3 of our subject worlds have declared independence. Others are considering it. What does the Zalari government want us to do about that?" "Nothing," Crintal said, surprising her. "If they wish to be free, they should be free. An empire built on false superiority has no right to exist. We are learning that lesson slowly, but we are learning it." Morrison studied the alien ambassador. "You sound like you welcome the collapse of your empire." "I welcome its transformation," Crintal corrected. "We cannot be what we were. That version of the Zalari Empire died in Central Park. What we become next is still being decided." Over the following weeks, Crintal worked with human diplomats to establish formal relations. Trade agreements were discussed. Cultural exchanges were planned. And most importantly, protocols for future contact with other species were developed. "The galaxy is large," Crintal explained during one meeting. "There are thousands of civilizations. Some are more advanced than us. Some are less advanced. Some are peaceful. Some are not. Earth needs to be prepared." "Are there other species like us?" asked Secretary General Okonkwo. 5 years had passed since the day the Zalari invasion collapsed in Central Park. The small stone marker was now surrounded by a garden, tended by volunteers who wanted to remember how humanity's first contact with alien life had been defined not by violence but by an accident of physics and a choice to show mercy. Ambassador Crintal visited the memorial often. He stood there now in his medical gravity suit, watching human children play nearby. They ran and jumped with an ease that still amazed him, their bodies perfectly adapted to the planet that had broken his people. A school group approached, led by their teacher. The children, around 10 years old, gathered around the memorial. Their teacher, a woman named Sarah Mitchell, began explaining the history. "This is where the Zalari landed 5 years ago," she said. "They came to conquer Earth, but something happened that no one expected." "Can anyone remember what it was?" A boy raised his hand. "Their bones broke because of gravity." "That's right, Marcus. The Zalari come from a world with much less gravity than Earth. They built special suits to protect them, but the suits weren't good enough. When they tried to fight, their bones couldn't handle the stress. A girl named Emma asked the question that all children asked eventually. Why didn't we just let them die? They wanted to hurt us. Sarah saw Crintal standing nearby and made a decision. Maybe our visitor can answer that. Children, this is Ambassador Crintal. He's from the Zilari homeworld. The children turned to stare at the tall, translucent figure. Crintal moved slowly toward them, careful with every step. He had been on Earth long enough to know his limits, but he still felt vulnerable every moment he spent on this heavy world. "Hello, young ones," he said through his translator. "Your question is a good one, Emma. Why did your people help us instead of destroying us?" Emma nodded, her eyes wide. "I have thought about this question for 5 years," Crintal said. "And I believe the answer is this. Your people understood something my people had forgotten. Strength is not just about the ability to hurt others. Real strength includes the ability to show mercy, even to those who came to harm you." "But you were the bad guys," Marcus protested. "Yes," Crintal agreed. We came to your world with weapons and demands. We believed we were superior to you. We were wrong. And when we fell, broken by our own arrogance, your people had a choice. They could have eliminated a threat. Instead, they chose to heal us. They chose to teach us. And because of that choice, my people are different now." Another child asked, "Do your bones still break easily?" "Yes," Crintal said. "My people are not built for worlds like yours. We evolved in low gravity in caves on a small moon. Our bones are light and flexible, perfect for our world. But here they are fragile. That is not a weakness, though. It is simply what we are. So you can never come to Earth without that suit?" Emma asked. "Not safely," Crintal admitted. "But that is acceptable. There are many kinds of worlds in the galaxy. Yours is not meant for me. Mine is not meant for you. We can still meet, still trade, still learn from each other. We just do it honestly now, acknowledging our differences instead of pretending they do not exist." The teacher thanked him, and the children moved on, chattering among themselves about aliens and gravity and broken bones. Crintal remained at the memorial, thinking about how much had changed. Far from Earth, on the high-gravity world where Thralix had served his sentence, the former commander was finally returning home. His year had become 18 months at his own request. He had wanted to be sure he truly understood the lesson. He was thinner now, his crystalline bones stressed by the constant pull of 0.8 gravity. He moved slowly, carefully, like someone who had learned that every step must be considered. The confidence that had defined him for so long was gone, replaced by something harder to name. Humility, perhaps, or wisdom earned through suffering. Bellamora met him at the spaceport on Zelar Prime. She barely recognized him. The arrogant commander who had led the fleet to Earth was gone. The being who returned was quieter, more thoughtful, marked by experience in ways that could not be hidden. "Welcome home," she said. "Home," Thralix repeated, as if testing the word. "Yes, though it feels different now. Lighter." They walked together through the corridors of the spaceport, moving in the gentle gravity of their homeworld. To Thralix, after 18 months of crushing weight, it felt like floating. "The Empire has changed in your absence," Velmora told him. 8 worlds have declared independence. We did not try to stop them. The military has been restructured. We are no longer an empire of conquest. We are becoming a federation of cooperation. "Good," Thralix said. "What we were could not survive contact with truth. Better to change than to cling to comfortable lies. There is a position for you if you want it," Belmora said. "Training new officers, teaching them the lessons you learned, making sure we never repeat your mistakes." Thralix considered this. "I would be honored. But I have one condition." "What is that?" "Every officer must spend at least 3 months on a high-gravity world. Not as punishment, but as education. They need to understand what it means to be truly challenged by an environment. They need to feel what our warriors felt on Earth." Velmora smiled. "That is already being implemented. We call it the Humility Protocol. Every military officer, every diplomat, every scientist who works with other species must experience conditions outside their comfort zone. We learn by being uncomfortable. On Earth, the starship Unity returned from its first mission. Captain Rodriguez and her crew had made contact with 3 new civilizations, all of them peaceful. The hybrid human Zilari crew had worked well together, their different perspectives making them stronger than either species alone would have been. Dr. Chen was at the landing ceremony, eager to hear about the xenobiology discoveries. Rodriguez found her in the crowd afterward. "You were right," the captain said, "about everything. We met the Kravik, the high-gravity species Ambassador Crintal told us about. They are incredibly strong, even more than us. But they were also cautious and respectful. They did not see their strength as a reason to dominate. What did you learn from them? Chen asked. That there is always someone stronger. Always someone more advanced. Always something that can humble you if you let arrogance guide you. The Kravik have been spacefaring for 3,000 years. They have seen empires rise and fall. They told us that the empires that last are not the strongest or the most technologically advanced. They are the ones that learn to cooperate. Chen nodded. I hope humanity is listening. Some are, Rodriguez said. Others still think we should build a military fleet and establish dominance while we can. The debate continues. It was true. 5 years after first contact, humanity was still divided on how to approach the galaxy. But the voices calling for cooperation were growing stronger. The Zilari example had been instructive. Everyone could see what happened when a civilization let arrogance guide its decisions. In the restructured Zilari government, now called the Zilari Federation, Velamora had been appointed as chief science advisor. Her first major project was a complete survey of all species in Zilari space, documenting their physiologies, their environments, and their needs. No more assumptions. No more projecting Zilari standards onto others. We have been in contact with 47 species for centuries, she explained during a presentation, and we never truly understood any of them. We categorized them as conquered and stopped learning. Now we are learning who they actually are. The discoveries were humbling. The species the Zilari had thought of as primitive were sophisticated in ways the Zilari had never recognized. They had adapted to their environments in elegant ways. They had knowledge that the Zilari had dismissed because it did not fit their paradigm of what knowledge should look like. We were so busy being superior that we never learned to be curious, Velmora said to Crintal during one of his visits home from Earth. That was perhaps our greatest failure, not the military defeat, but the intellectual poverty that led to it. Crintal had just returned from a conference on Earth where human and Zilari scientists had presented joint research. The collaboration was producing remarkable results. Human engineers thought in terms of robustness and stress tolerance. Zilari engineers thought in terms of efficiency and elegance. Together, they created designs better than either could achieve alone. Earth is proposing a joint colony, Crintal told her, a space station in a neutral system, built with both human and Zilari sections, a place where both species can live and work together. The Unity Station project, Velmora said. Yes, I have seen the proposals. It is ambitious. It is necessary, Crintal said. If our species can learn to coexist in a shared space, we can model that cooperation for the galaxy. We can show that first contact does not have to define all future contact. The Unity Station was built over the next 3 years. It orbited a planet with 0.6 gravity, a compromise that neither species found ideal but both could adapt to. The human sections were built to Earth standards, heavy and robust. The Zilari sections were lighter, more crystalline, optimized for low gravity. And there were shared spaces where both species met, working in suits or adapters, learning to accommodate each other. Young people from both species volunteered to be the first residents.